You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Keshia.
Welcome to the Road to Wisdom podcast. This morning, we are talking to Michaeleen Doucleff, and you are the beautiful author.
The way you said her last name was so
Doucleff.
Sexy.
It was really sexy.
Oh, it was very like French.
Oh yeah, I speak French fluent, if anybody didn't know. And you are the author of the book Hunt, Gather, Parent, which is why we are here today to chat, because I've been listening to the audiobook and it's made me realize that we are quite weird as parents and human beings.
Tell me something we don't know.
Yes.
And quite frankly, I want to iron out a couple of things. So, and obviously we'd like really good kids.
Yeah, and we want to parent well. I think like
well.
one thing that is a very common thread where we are from is everyone is trying to do their best parenting. Like there is such a focus on like how can we do better as parents, and it takes a lot of attention from a lot of people. And like if you're not doing better as a parent, you're like judging yourself, you're judging other people. It's really it's like a shit show. So
welcome.
Yeah.
We're hoping.
Insert Michaeleen to sort this shit out.
Yeah, shit show is the right term for it right now.
So
it doesn't have to be that way. I can tell you, it doesn't have to be that way.
Right, tell us.
Yeah.
How?
Maybe we can start, Michaeleen, for those who haven't stumbled across your book, which we highly recommend. Do you want to maybe just give us a little debrief of how it came about and what you found?
Yeah, so I started off as I've been a journalist now for like almost 15 years, a global health journalist covering mostly disease outbreaks, viral outbreaks, and before COVID. And my employer, NPR, National Public Radio, would send me around the world kind of chasing diseases. And around 2015, I became a mom and I had little girl Rosie, and it was magical and then horrible, I will say, right? The magic quickly turned to like horror and like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, like my husband was like, we took all these classes for giving birth but we never took any classes for what to do after the birth. Like, what do we do? Like we literally had no clue what to do. And as the years went by, 2, 3, it got worse. But at the same time, I was traveling all over the world for my job and starting to see kind of the people I was interacting with, not from the standpoint of what diseases, were going on in their environment, but from the standpoint of how they were parenting. And I started to realize that in a lot of places that I went, the parents seemed to not be stressed, number one. It was like this kind of ease that was happening with their children that I just could not see in America, in San Francisco. That's where we were living at the time. And it was not in just one place. It was in multiple places that this was happening. And the kids were actually really incredible. So the book really begins with a trip down to the Yucatan, to a little tiny Maya village, where I really, like, my eyes kind of opened. And I was like, wow, wait a second. Parenting can be like this easy and this kind of effortlessness to it. One family in particular, this woman, Maria, has 5 kids. And the kids were great. They were like, kind to her, kind to their siblings, they shared, and they were super, super helpful. Like I talk about one morning, a 12-year-old wakes up on spring break, walks past me and her mother in the kitchen and starts doing the dishes like completely voluntarily. And I was just kind of like, whoa, like what's going on? Like, how does this woman seem to be like barely like stressed at all and raising these like incredible kids? And so I really started to investigate this more and looking at some of the other cultures that I had been to. And I started to really realize that our culture, which I call Western culture, which is really like European roots, so European Americans, European Australians, has kind of lost sight of really how to raise children in this like very effective, efficient way. And this book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, is my way of trying to bring back some of that wisdom. And I just have to say that when I would try the things that these parents around the world taught me, they really made my life easier. And I finally felt like I could connect with my little girl. And beforehand, we were, like I say in the book, we were just like headed towards being complete enemies and arguing all the time and like complete like conflict all the time. Right. And so now I have to say she's almost 9. She turns 9 tomorrow. And she's like an amazing kid. I mean, she just really, I every day I'm grateful for the people that are in the book. So.
Wow.
Amazing. And just really quickly, so 2015 was when I also became a parent.
Okay.
So
Oh, right.
my little girl
9,
just
yeah.
turned 9 as well. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, amazing. And I just, my mind is kind of blowing at how much your little girl has seen overseas.
Yeah. Yeah.
What she's experienced. I'm like, whoa.
There's some adversity there.
Yeah. Which we were talking about before we actually started recording. What was like, so you didn't just go to Mexico, you ended up traveling around a few different areas and found much similar types of parenting going on, and the product of that type of parenting was all pretty similar. And that's obviously very different to what we do here. Like, and it kind of seems like we're all at war. I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to speak for you too, because I know we dabble in this together, but like our Instagram DMs are literally like comedic relief of motherhood. And it's like, and it's literally memes.
Wait, and really quickly, before we started this podcast, we were so like, there's so much like motherhood hate. We need to start a podcast where there's less motherhood hate and we just talk about all the joys of motherhood. And like right now we're in the shit.
Yeah. And it's literally like, because we are making comedic relief about how hard parenting can be. And like my partner and I had this like massive blow up with our almost 9-year-old last night. Like, why is it so freaking hard for you to just help clear the table after dinner? And like, you know, and they drag their feet. They're like, oh, I did it last night, or I did it. I'm like, well, these are my words. I was like, Bertie, you've been alive for like more than 3,000 freaking days, and I have cooked every meal for you, and I've barely missed a beat. Like, it's more than 3,000 days. Like, why are you killing me over this?
So
and then I'm looking at my partner,
is that
and I'm
made
like,
all the meals.
and I'm literally looking at my partner like, we are digging ourselves in the biggest hole. Like, I cannot keep doing this. Like, what are we doing wrong? And then like I'm also listening to your audiobook at the same time, and it's, you know, like I'm listening to the part where it's like they've got these perfect kids who just innately want to help, and they actually don't even see it as help. It's just like they've got this responsibility. And I know in Mexico they actually call it something, and I can't remember what.
Yeah. A comodito. It's
A comodito. Yeah.
It's not just
and I
something,
was like,
it's like more than that. It's actually
way of being. Yeah.
it's actually predicting what needs to be done, right? It's like it's not just helping when you're asked. A lot of the Maya parent moms will actually say anyone can help. Anybody can do what you're told. Like, that's not a skill. That's but like, you know, it's actually like being aware of other people around you and what their needs are, and then like stepping in and helping. So it's I've learned since the book has been published, I've learned that a comodito is a very high bar for American children. Extremely high. But it is achievable. But I think the first realm is what you're talking about, like really getting the kids jazzed about actually, you know, pitching in when told to be. It is the first step in reaching a comodito, is learning to do kind of, you know, to jump in when you're asked, right? So I mean, we can fix that problem pretty easily that you have. It just takes a little bit of like mindset
I
change.
guess like maybe we should start at trying to understand like how in the Western world parenting became such a grind almost. Like, why does it feel like we're always up against our kids, and why we seem to always get the pushback? Like, we understand, like, you know, there's power when we learn about like gentle parenting and aware parenting, like there's the power struggles, there's the like connecting, there's the whatever, but like it seems like from day one we're just like completely fucking derailed. Like it's from, you know, like you may have breastfeeding troubles to sleep troubles to teething, like to, you know, constant meltdowns when they're younger. And, you know, I know some parents who are just feeling like they're constantly in battle with their own child and actually have no idea how to get out of this.
And like you actually brought up a really good point. It's like people start feeling that way from infancy. Like their babies, like, oh my God, baby won't let me sleep. I like one of the memes that that I sent you the other day about Stockholm syndrome.
Oh yeah.
And it was just talking about how
much you hate your baby, but you love them so much.
No, how parents, like all parents are basically in like this Stockholm syndrome situation because they like your kids are like basically beating you and telling you
because they're like a torture device. They're like a torture device. I mean, I think,
but you love them and you wouldn't like you wouldn't let anyone save you from the situation. And I was just like, oh my God.
But it's kind of sad, right? Like that, like
yeah.
You know, parenting right now. I'm almost finished with the second book, and it's about dopamine and our reward circuitry in our brain and our children's. And you know, parenting is one of the key rewards in our brain. I mean, like our reward circuitry evolved to help us find or to make parenting really joyful and pleasurable. So it gives you enormous amounts of pleasure if you find meaning in it, and it's supposed to. And so it's really I think that was one of the big things that I saw when I traveled, and what I learned is that these parents enjoyed their children. And even like one of the moms told me that, like, she was like, you know, my kids are like my closest people that I love to be with. They keep me company. We have such fun together, right? And there's this, and I think that's what we've lost. And in fact, we like expect it to be the other way. We expect this massive struggle, and we expect all this conflict. And I think it's not our fault. I mean, one of the big parts I hope you get it from the beginning of the book is like, this is not our fault. Like we have been set up to kind of fail and struggle because, for one, we've lost all of our teachers, right? So we're handed this baby or these children, and we very rarely have we been taught what to do, right? I mean, like I had a half brother when I was 15 or 16. And that was like the only thing I ever saw parenting wise, right? Was like, you know, this in and out of watching my little half brother get parented. But like most people don't see other children get parented very much, right? Even if you have siblings, you're not really around and you're not encouraged to take part in that, right? And so traditionally we have been taught how to parent by older people that live with us or near us or that live across the street or live in a community, right? So older relatives, but neighbors. Like we used to live in these really kind of extended families instead of this very tiny nuclear family. And what that did was that brought about all of this knowledge that was transferred from the older generation to us, right? And then we had aunts and uncles and friends, and then a lot of people had a lot of kids, right? Like the average size of the family has just shrunk. And when we've shrunk it, we've lost, like your 9-year-old sees a lot of the parenting, right? And you can teach them a lot of parenting at that point, right? But I didn't have that. So we've lost the knowledge, right? We've lost the teachers and the knowledge. And then on top of that, we've really lost this ability to relate to people in a way that doesn't form conflict. And I think that that's like a huge part of our society. It's been, you know, talked about a lot. It's called individualism, right? It's this idea that like we are here to teach our children to figure out what they want. And gentle parent, this is a kind of a big component of gentle parenting, is like figure out what your child wants and then tell them to go after it and get it no matter what, right? And it's all about focusing on their self, right? And there's very little focus on how you interconnect with other people, right? And what you bring to the group, what you bring contribution wise, help wise, right? And so a big part of Hunt Gather Parent is trying to reinstall this skill of like interacting with a person in a way that feels good for both the person for both parties, and in a way that each party is allowed to help each other. So this is a big thing that we've stripped out of children's lives, is that they have a place to contribute and give to the family, like on a daily basis, right? And so I picked the Maya community. So just to give an overview of the book, I went to 3 places, and I picked them because in each place I saw that the parents don't struggle with something that we really struggle with. So in the Maya community, parents raise very helpful children. This has been documented in the literature, the research literature, extensively. Children are extremely helpful. They stay that way. They voluntarily help. And parents have a whole system to do it. And so I tried to bring into the book some of the things that they do. But the key thing, which I think people kind of miss, is that from a very early age, like that baby that you're holding in your sweet baby, what they see their job as a parent is to provide opportunities for the child to contribute to the family, to help, to make real meaningful contributions on a daily basis. This isn't something that the child is like forced to do. It's not a burden, but they see it as like a service to the child, a gift to the child, because we are humans and we need that. We need purpose in our life. We need to contribute and make a difference. And I think that that's what's missing in many, many kids' lives is they don't see their life as meaningful or purposeful. And actually, if you look at kids that are like suicidal and have really extensive depression and anxiety in their teens, they tell you this. They tell you that their life feels meaningless and purposeless, right? But I think that those seeds get started very early, when every time we're making dinner or cleaning up, we have the children go and play, right? We don't make room for them.
Yeah. But this is huge because we've eliminated children helping us and like
Yeah.
contributing and having a part in like, even if it's just a nuclear family community, like you could create that within the nuclear family.
Absolutely.
And this is something I harp on and on about, but there's so many things that I didn't really realize until I had 4 or 5, even 3, 4 or 5 children. Like, it's so hard. Like, we started off very child-centered, but then once I ran out of arms per children, like I didn't have the hands anymore. It's like, okay, well, now my kids actually have to contribute because otherwise it's not all going to get done. And then there was like this inner guilt that I'm like making my older children like be too responsible. Yeah, like they're responsible for too much. Like they should get a childhood. Well, like I need to keep their childhood magical, and like all of the like this, keeping like protecting the childhood side of it, which means not too many responsibilities.
That's the myth. That's what you've been sold, right? Like this myth arose. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, it's BS. It arose in European society around the turn of the Industrial Revolution. You can see it arise, that this idea that the children's job is to play, right? And you're not making them not play. I know that, right? It's like there's plenty of time to play. Like the Maya children have plenty of noodles of time to play. That's not the point. The point is they also have opportunities to help their parents. Children are born wanting to help their parents. You know it, right? The toddler wants to help, but the baby, the little kid wants to help. They want to clean. They want to, like, there's so much data in the lab, out of the lab, that European children, Australian, American children, toddlers want to help. We strip that away from them over time because we think what you just said, that like it's their job to play. And what the communities in the book showed me is, yes, they play. There's no doubt there's time to play. They're not working in a factory. They're not working, they're not cleaning houses all day. Nothing like that. We're talking about like 5 minutes of making tortillas with their mom. We're talking about 5 minutes of sweeping the floor after dinner, right? Like this is tiny, tiny things that mean the world to a small child. But also over the days, as you've just beautifully demonstrated, 3,000 days or whatever it is, those 5 minutes add up. And 5 minutes of tortilla making or dinner making each day turns into a child that knows how to make dinner, right? It turns into a child that has a real skill to take care of themselves, but also other people, right? And so we've been like fed this idea that like, if a child is helping, somehow we're like hurting them. But the truth is we are hurting them when we don't give them opportunities to help. To give them opportunities to feel purposeful and meaningful. This is a giant thing missing in children's lives. And I feel like it's like one thing you could do. I think in the book I say there's one thing you could do is give them autonomy, which I still stand by. But like, we can talk about that too. But I think this is the other thing is like, see a value in them learning some basic fundamental skills of life, right? Cooking, helping, cleaning, taking care of yourself. Like, and if it's done in a way where it's a social event where you're doing it with them, it's not you go clean up your room, you clean the kitchen now. This is not it. This will not make kids enjoy cleaning or cooking or like, but it needs to be a social event. It's like, we're all going to do this. We all clean up afterwards. We all cook dinner together. Like it's a social thing. Again, children are incredibly social creatures. They want to be with us at every moment, So use that motivation to teach them things that will actually help you get stuff done and them become, functioning human beings.
Something that I'd love to just quickly touch on while we're here is the defining of autonomy, because in our community and around in different types of styles of parenting, autonomy typically sounds like do whatever you want.
That's right.
And have
That's
the
how it's
child do whatever
interpreted
they want. It's how it's interpreted.
in America.
So in
too.
your looking through your lens and your experience and your findings, what does autonomy mean for you and these families that you look at?
Psychologists, cross-cultural psychologists. So this is like a huge mistake that's made in throughout America, throughout European societies. But for cross-cultural psychologists that study families, not just in an American society, Western culture, autonomy is not just about do whatever you want. That's independence. That is not at all what children. So one of the things about Hunt Gather Parent is what I tried to do was I tried to find kind of universal characteristics of parenting. Like if you go all around the world in many, many different cultures, you can find like 5 or 6 things that every culture does, except for a handful, including ours. And one of them is autonomy. But it is not independence. It is not do whatever you want at all. In fact, that's not really what children need. Autonomy is, yes, you get to choose what you kind of do in like kind of moment to moment. There's very, very, very little interference, but you are constantly thinking about the group. There's some sort of like scaffold around it or structure around it or lanes that have been defined. So like children in hunter-gatherer communities, like in Tanzania where we went, the little girl did in the book, Bailey, she did pretty much, it looked like she was doing whatever she wanted. She was free, really. But then if you really really focused on what she was doing, she was constantly thinking about the other people in her group. She was constantly, the baby cried, she picked up the baby. When we walked to the river, she went and gathered lunch for the whole group. Like there's this sense of like, I'm part of this group and my world includes this group. And so when I'm choosing what to do, I include the group, right? So it's about like respecting each other, being helpful when you can, being generous when you can. So yes, there's a lot of freedom there, but it's not just I'm this island. It is I'm connected to this group. And I would argue that that's what makes children feel the best, is when they have some room to maneuver. They don't feel kind of imprisoned, but they're also, like I say, have this purpose and this role in this larger group. Because our reward system is made to feel pleasure when we give to others, when we do something to others. We feel way more pleasure than when something's done for us in many cultures. And so that's what kind of autonomy does, is it gives this freedom. There's like a tension there, right? Where humans kind of want to do what they want to do. They don't want to be told what to do, but they also need to be cooperative and they need to work together. That's what's made humans and what's made us survive for so long. So it's a mistake to say you do whatever you want. And it's one of the things with gentle parenting that I've come to really not like, is that there's not this teaching of how my actions affect other people, right? And one of the things that is required to be a functioning, happy adult is to learn how to have relationships with people, right? Friendships, love, interest. And you can't do that if you don't know how your actions affect them, right? And create some sort of like reciprocal I can't say the word. What's the noun of reciprocal?
Reciprocity?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Oh, don't rely on me for words.
Let's hope our listeners.
Reciprocity. I think that's
Reciprocity. That's right.
There
That's
we
right.
go.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's like,
no, and
Go ahead.
that's something that I've seen quite a bit. Like, and I feel like I've noticed, and again, something that wouldn't have been brought to my attention unless I'd had as many children as I'd had, where it's like we're so designed currently to be an individual and strive for our individual needs and look for our individual like wants and desires and blah blah blah. But
it's very self-centered.
It's so self-centered, and like, you know, and you see it like that travels all the way to adults. Like, we need self-care, self-time. Like, I need my own space, and like everyone needs their own space. And then we're trying to keep that, but we're bringing in co-sleeping now, and we're bringing in like other things where it's like, okay, the kids are getting everything that they want, desire, need, require, but I'm also going to protect their childhood by making sure that they don't have to have any responsibilities. And I've slowly, that's like disintegrated in my mind, because I'm like, oh, actually the way that we function has to be like, my family has to function as an organism. Like, when we go out, like, if I just, the pure fact that I need to know where all my kids are at every time means that you can't go that far. Like, you can't go as far and wherever you want. You like, well, are you going to have to look after Poet? Like, I'm stuck here feeding a baby, and I'm watching your brothers climb some ridiculous tree that I hope they don't just launch themselves off. And yeah, it is much like an organism. And then you see that like within our family, like within the community, that's something that, again, we're trying to bring in by like, I mean, we talk a lot about women in postpartum and how mothers are struggling so much, and how, you know, we really need to come together and support those mothers. But it's just mothers supporting more mothers, and the mothers that are supporting the mothers are, you know, drained and like pouring from an empty cup kind of thing. And that's because we're not asking our kids, our teens, our 20-year-olds who are all, you know, discovering themselves and doing all this, you know, like, we've sent them off to like do the self-discovery and travel the world and learn who you are and learn what you want and who you want to be and all this stuff, which is great. I'm not dissing that at all, but it means that there's no responsibility to the family. Like, it's like, oh, you do what you want.
Or themselves. Like, most adults don't have any money to afford life or anything, and that probably stems from not having any responsibility or having any, like, you know, awareness of like what life is.
Yeah, but like, when
I mean, I would say you're like stripping children from a huge source of joy in their life. That like learning how to help other people and contribute, especially to people that love you, right? Especially to the people that like brought you into this world, or like I say, like the sun, the moon, and all the planets, right? Like being able to help those people and contribute to those people's lives is an enormous source of joy in children's lives, from like toddlers to 20-year-olds. Like, I see it all the time. Kids come and we have a little school here, and I see these kids come and they've never been able to help their parents, because the parents, it's all in good, you know, intentions. Don't let them help. And but they contribute here and they help, and you can see like their faces light up, and this pride and this sense of like, you know, it's a disservice to a child not to give them this. And it's incredibly lonely. Like, we have a loneliness epidemic in America, and I'm sure it's similar there, right? And I think a part of this is because we're not giving children like a way of connecting to their parents. And one of the biggest forms of connection is helping, right? Is doing stuff that makes your life easier, that makes the family's life easier, that improves the lives of the people that they love, right? And so I think it's great that we have like this individualism spirit and this like, do it, you know, find out what you want and go get it. And I think that that's in many of the cultures that are in the book as well. It's just that it's balanced with, you know, this other, that like you can have both, you know, it's not one or. And even just adding a little bit in can make a huge difference in your family's life. Like, I always tell people, like, just one meal a week, just be like, we're not doing anything There's no plans. We're gonna cook a meal together, and we're gonna clean up afterwards. And we're not gonna force the children to do it. There's all these ways of encouraging them to do it. And just, one a week, that's 52 times a year, right? That's gonna make a huge difference in the mental health of your children, but also how well they behave. Because I really think that a lot of misbehavior is children just being like screaming, like, I want to help, I want to contribute, I want to be part of this. Because I'm telling you, we evolved to be that way. Like for 200,000 years, children were helping their families. And so it's just in the last 150 that they stopped. So something is weird, right? Like something's kind of off, right? Or at least we should question it.
That's something that I actually really loved that you talked about. It was when our toddlers and are trying to help, and we're trying to balance in a typical scenario, you're cooking, your toddler wants help. You're like, absolutely not, because I need to get this done fast, because we've got to go here fast and here fast, and it needs to be done, and I can't deal with the mess. But I think one of the things that I really loved that you spoke on was giving them a really simple task. So you're still encouraging it, you're still including them, but you can also avoid any like really hectic mess if that's not what you have time for.
Yeah.
Would you be able to take us through that?
Yeah, I think that this is a big mistake I was making, was like, okay, Rosie, that's my little girl. When I wrote this, when I started this was like 3, she was 2, 3. It was like, Rosie wants to help in the kitchen. Okay, come help. And like start, making a giant mess, doing everything, right? It was like this very like big task, right? Like she's taking over basically. And like, this is not how it works in every other culture in the world at all. The parent is not there to allow the child to just destroy the place. That is not it. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. It's like the parent kind of knows exactly what the child is capable of at that moment, right? And starts off really, really simple. So like when Rosie was 3, when we went to Mexico, the mom would give her a piece of dough to play with by herself, right? Like, so we would all be in the kitchen making tortillas, and Rosie couldn't make a tortilla. So she gave her a ball of dough and said, go sit over here and make tortillas with this little piece of dough, right? And that was it. That's helping, right? Like, and most of it is just being there. I think people miss this too, that if the child is just near you, they're going to learn what you're doing. Children learn by watching. And so most of it is just not pushing them away, right? If they're there to come help, I want to help. Okay, but they can't do it yet. It's like, okay, stay here and like, give them some carrots and a little dull knife and say, chop these carrots, right? Like, or go outside and grab some herbs from the garden. Like just these tiny, tiny, tiny little things, that they can do, and they can do quickly. That's all they need. And we're talking about like 1 or 2 of these things a day. Like that's it. So it's really 2 things. It's one, not shooing them away and sticking a screen in front of their face or telling them to go play, because now you're telling them their job in your family is to play and watch screens. It's not that. So don't do that. Number 1. Encourage them to stay with you. Hey, can you, bring if you don't want them to help, bring your coloring over here and talk to me and be with me while I'm cooking, or sit here and play with this dough, or give them a spoon and some pasta and fake, uncooked pasta, and tell them, just to stir the pot, just something tiny to have them be there with you. 90% of them is them being there with you. This is actually how I taught my husband to cook, to be honest, is to just get him like, I'm not kidding. Like
works
after
on husbands as well.
So I think it can work on teenagers. I really do. I've tried it on a bunch of teenagers, and I think it definitely, it's just this idea of like, don't come help me, because if you say come help me to them, they're not going to do it, right? No, don't say that. It's just come be with me and tell me about your project. Tell me about what's getting you all excited right now while I cook. And then it's like, okay, hand me those onions from the refrigerator. Like, okay, now can you chop these or stir this pot or do, right? It's like giving them these tiny tasks. So we're making our lives really hard by giving our children too much, then they can't bite it all off, right? And it becomes a total mess, right? And like, okay, so 1 is like, don't shoo them away. Keep them there if you can. And then 2, it's like, give them these very, very small tasks. And over the years, the small tasks will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now Rosie bakes lasagna. She can make full off dinner. Like it takes time. Like it takes time. I'm not saying it's going to, but the behavior will improve really quickly if they start feeling like they're part of this team, right? We are made to be part of a team. And children feel lonely and bad if they're not. And so it's like, hey, come just be with me. Same thing with like folding laundry. It's like, come hang out with me. And then, it's like, okay, put those underwear away, put this away. It's like, it's not.
Okay, now grab all your clothes, fold them up, and put them away.
Yeah, eventually,
No,
right?
actually,
It's like eventually it
They
happens.
do.
They do.
I really actually resonate. I just was thinking about my own family for a second there, because like all my kids cook, and like it's their favorite thing to do. And now I've got a Rosie as well, and she's turning 5 next week, and she can cook a whole meal from like washing the pan, turning on the oven, blending up whatever pancake mixture, getting all the ingredients, and then cooking it and then serving it to us on the table. And it's so fucking impressive. But all my kids will fight over who can cook. But usually just one of them wants to cook alone. But when they all cook together, they're so happy. If one of the person who like, because we ended up having to like dedicate days where each kid cooks because it's a shit show. But when one of the kids lets the other kid cook, it's like so peaceful, and they just get so happy about it. And it just made me realize it's because they're together, and it's like that is exactly what you're saying. So yeah, I can only imagine if we started doing mundane things like, hey, come talk to me while I clean the toilet. Hey, could you just
I think kids love cleaning toilets. They love cleaning toilets. Like I taught like that. I mean, we have something like the 5-second bathroom clean, and it's like, yeah, Rosie, like, I mean, it's all the way you pitch it. Right.
Yeah.
Like this is like the book I'm writing
Your
now.
Elevator pitch for cleaning.
Kind of. I mean, like if you come at it, and I mean, like one of the things I realized was like Matt and I, my husband and I, were arguing every night over who's doing the dishes. Like, well, you did it last night. Like kind of like what you were talking about at the beginning. Like you did it last night, but I do it. Like, and I was like, if that's what's presented to Rosie, my kid, it's like this is what she's gonna do. She's gonna fight over who cleans up, right? And it's like, so again, it's like it's all how you pitch it. It's like, are we doing this as a family? Are we getting this done fast? Because gosh, if we do it all three of us, it's going to be done 5 minutes, and we're done, and we can go on. Or is this something that we're going to like sit here and argue about for 15 minutes? When we could have had it done, right? In that amount of time.
Something I'd love to talk to you about is the rewards.
I was going to say
because like rewards for tasks is obviously something that I definitely use.
I hate it, but I think we all do it because it genuinely works. But
and when you're in a rush or when you just need something done, it's like it's the last resort. You go to it, you grab it, and sometimes it works.
It's when like your kids, I don't know if Willow does this, but like now one of my kids might say like, oh, if I do that, or like,
yes,
right. I mean, it's a market economy you're setting up, so
yeah,
they're going to run with it.
And it's like the other day I was like, if we've got a farm and we had like this big wind thing and like a whole bunch of rubbish was flying everywhere, and I was like, we got to clean this shit up, and like I'll give you $1 for everything you put in the thing. Worst mistake ever. They went to town. They were putting everything. They were putting things that weren't even rubbish in that trailer. And then my kids are each like, I put 100 things in. I'm like, that's $500. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm not paying any of you. And like, well, you never follow through. It's just like, I have set myself up for failure. But even like my kid just finished like a year's worth of homeschool language and arts in like 3 months. Super impressive. She's like, what's the like, and we're like setting her up for like a reward, and like, wow, you did this. And so like I feel like the praise and the rewards thing are like they go hand in hand, and I cringe every time. But I really didn't think about praise being so bad. And I know in your book you're like, stop praising. Stop that. Because it's like it gives them this like.
And yeah, even for just say someone made their bed and I didn't have to ask, like the initial response is like, oh my God, you made your bed. Look at you. Look at you. You just did that. You made your, thank you. You're like, what can we do for you today? Like, how can I make today I'm going to reward
you for that.
Yeah. And it's like, why am I doing this?
Why are you doing it? There's a funny story. There's a woman, a psychologist at UC Irvine in California who, I don't think she's read my book. She's a Mexican-American researcher. And she was talking to me one day, and like I said, she didn't know anything about my book or anything, but she was talking about this idea of European American parents giving money to children for cleaning. She was just like, this is insane. Like, she's first generation. She's like, she said, when I was younger, I watched the Brady Bunch and I saw this, that like the kids got like an allowance, money for cleaning. And I went to my mom and I was like, when am I going to get money for cleaning? And her mom said something, Mexican woman, she said something like, I'll tell you what, I should be charging you for living here and me doing your laundry. And me, she's like, I'm not going to give you money. In fact, if you want money, I'm going to start charging you for everything that I do for you. And I think that she's like, you live here, you benefit everything from this that I do. Like, why should you get something extra on top of it for just taking care of it? I think the problem with it is one, you're placing the kid again not in the team, right? You're placing the kid as like you're somebody that you're hiring, right? Like, there's not this idea of like fam. So one of the really weird things about European people, Western people,
slap it on us.
So I call it weird. That's like the psychological term that's been used, right? That like we didn't talk about this, but in psychology, there's actually this term for middle class Western European ancestry people, weird. And it's because on psychological exams, we behave really strangely compared to the rest of the world. And so we literally are weird. It's this acronym. But one of the things that we are really weird about is that we basically have only like transactional relationships, right? So it gets a little bit what we were talking about before with reciprocal relationships, where every relationship is somehow transactional. Like, what am I going to get from it? And what am I going to get back? What are you going to get? What I'm going to get? Is it equal? And like, and we don't really have this sense of like, okay, with my family, it's different, right? That with my family, we're all helping each other. That like, of course I'm going to come clean up at the kitchen because you just made dinner, or you're going to clean up tomorrow, or like we're all in this together. We've lost this sense, right? Of like, we're all in this together. We're all helping each other as much as we can. We all bring something to the team. I'm on your team, you're on my team. Like, it's this really cohesive kind of family unit. We've lost that in the weird society. And I think the problem with the rewards like that is you're kind of teaching them that, right? You're kind of teaching them that they just helping isn't a reward enough, right? And they kind of lose that what I was just talking about, that sense of like, wow, I just helped my family. That feels really good. And that helping other people is this source of joy in my life and really makes me feel good. No, I'm doing it for money, and it's like, you're teaching them to do it for a different reason, right? And I think that they lose out. They lose out on like, maybe they don't do it as fast because there's not as much motivation. This takes time to really develop this, right? So yeah, you're not getting it done like this. Like, your outside space maybe have gotten cleaned up slower or not completely, but you're teaching them this really lifelong kind of skill and mental health boost. And you're building this really beautiful connection with them, right? And that we're all in this together. So that by the time they're like 9 or 10 and 11, you really have a child that is capable of helping, really wants to help, and is, you're this like cohesive unit that, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful feeling. And I just don't think you can get there quite by giving them money for helping.
I haven't, by the way. I didn't stick to my word, which is also a really bad parenting.
No, I don't think it's bad at all. I'm glad you didn't stick to your word. Good. And in fact, I think this idea that we're like, we have to be consistent at every moment. Like, I think that's just setting us up totally to fail, because who is consistent at every moment? Nobody. And life is not that way either. And it's like, you know what? I made a mistake. I made a mistake by telling you that money. And it's like, move on, kid. Thanks for cleaning up.
Please don't let this. But and here's another thing. Like, this would now become a trauma. Oh my God, she'll be 30 going to therapy, being like, my mum promised me $100 one time.
Yeah.
No.
And that kind of plays. But does that not play on you, like with parenting? You're like, oh shit, did I just like cause something that's because gonna, like affect them for the rest of their lives? Like
the Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
Gabor Mate.
Followers of the world, like literally spilling a glass in front of them is creating some type of trauma. But like
I mean, he also thinks that, right, like that they should never have peers. I mean, there's a lot of extreme thinking there, right?
Yeah.
I like him. I'm
But
a
also-
fan of some of it, but like it's could be a little.
same.
I am too.
But he does a lot of great stuff. But then there's a lot of stuff there that you're just like,
you're like,
you're like, I can't stick to all of this. I
Yeah.
can't.
No.
And like I
No.
have yelled at my kids and now they're ruined
Yeah.
apparently.
No.
So
We yell all the
but
time.
I guess like the other part of what we were just trying to talk about is we've just talked about the rewards, but the praise and how we're constantly praising our children for doing very normal, expected tasks and things.
Like they just draw a pretty picture and like, oh my God.
But sometimes it is a
beautiful.
tearjerker,
It's the best thing I've ever seen. But I do it for like, there will be a line on the page and I'll be like, oh my God, poet, you're an artist. I don't want to.
Like, what's the problem with that? And what is the appropriate way for our kids to feel like, I guess, like if we have that more like bonded connection and it's like much more organic as opposed to like exactly what you were saying before, I guess they probably don't need to be told that every move they make is so grandiose and so bloody extra and awesome. They're just feeling that and they probably don't need it because, you know, like it is frustrating when the kid is constantly like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And it's sometimes even triggering, like, why do you need that it's like we're breeding these self-centered little human beings that, and you think,
I mean,
like,
I
one
do
of the
think
most
it's because
important...
they're missing. I mean, I think there's another psychologist that was talking about this a couple months ago with me that like, that look at me, look at me, look at me is because they're missing kind of this huge part of their life, purpose and connection with you in like a really meaningful way. I think the problem with the praise is like, well, one, you don't need it. I mean, kids don't, if they have this other, I mean, they don't need it. I mean, I've never heard a parent praise a child around the world. Never, like never, not once. I think I know. I know. And it's like, and the kids are not like, you know, these crippling, you know,
like
children
that hate and disappointment.
No, or like, you know, like no self-esteem, not at all. It's like completely the opposite. But these kids do have like all of these opportunities to contribute and work together with their families and work together with their community. And like they feel part of a team, right? They feel part of a group. They have autonomy, right? So I think for me, because I've had a lot of time to play around with the praise, is like, one, I think it's never a problem to like express a genuine emotion to your child. You know, like if like people always ask me, well, what do you say in this situation? And what do you say? Like right now it's, you know, all these scripts, like you say this and you say that and you whatever. It's like, no, what you want to do is be genuine with your child, right? There's like if you're excited about that picture, you know what? Say it. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like the kid, if it's like a genuine like connection and feeling, then that's wonderful. That's, I mean, right? And it's like, and if it works for the kid and the kid feels good, it's like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that praise doesn't do all of the things that we think it does, right? And it definitely doesn't work when it's like not genuine, when it's just kind of a way of like controlling them and kind of motivating them in certain way. It's like kind of this manipulative device. Then it's like,
well, I kind of wonder, like, we're in this time of the world where social media is obviously massive, and I kind of am feeling like, as you say this, I'm thinking about young women and even our age, like we still have these mega self-esteem problems, and like obviously social media and stuff is breeding this platform to search for it, and maybe it's because it's a constant thing that we tend to need to externally fulfill that self-esteem cup, I suppose. So we're like Instagramming and we're like, you know, presenting in a way that
it just
doesn't
feels
work.
worse and worse,
it doesn't
right?
work 100%.
Doesn't
like,
it feel worse?
It feels worse. And I know, like, there are grown-ass women like older than us who are struggling with their self-esteem, and they still would never appear to the world without like Botox, makeup, like their 10-step skin routine. And like, I'm not bagging that, like, you do you, but at the root of it, there is clearly this thing. And like a lot of them even talk about it. A lot of women even talk about like, yes, I have self-esteem issues or whatever. And so I do wonder, like, if we continue to constantly overly doing it with our kids, or, you know, we're taking away these jobs as like purpose.
Yeah. It's like
that's needed.
Self-esteem, right? Like it's still bringing everything back to
the self.
Yeah. Whereas like if it's coming like, okay, what am I contributing to society with what I'm putting out there? It doesn't matter what I look like or like how I'm presented, really. It's about what am I contributing, and then all of a sudden that
How am I helping?
dissolves away.
Or like at
guess,
least
like,
relieves the pressure, right? They're like, like all of your purpose in life comes from this getting likes there. I mean, there's a woman that studies this, that like, she studies how like our generation, you know, was kind of the first praise generation. Like I'm almost 50, so I think I'm older than you guys, but like my mom was into that praise. It was like 80s parenting, you know, and she talks about how that my generation grew up with this praise, and then you create social media where you have this like praise engine, right? It's like likes and likes and likes and like she talks about how like we're just set up to like try to feed off of this by getting what we need, because we were taught, right, as children, to get what we want, to fill our cup, as you say, which I like, maybe not self-esteem cup, but fill our cup with praise, right? That's how we interact with our parents. That's how we get their attention. That's how we feel good from them. We feel, but so then now we have a device that gives us that, or at least promises that, right? And I think it's just setting us up for like misery, to be honest, because it's not going to give you that, right?
Like constant disconnection. It feels like when you zoom out a little bit, it's just like, oh, all of these ways that we're setting ourselves up is like to be more disconnected. Whereas I feel like the theme in your book was like more connection, and not just within a nuclear family, but within a village, within the community. I mean, here, you know, people knowing their neighbors is probably just something that like you can foster, just so that, you know, now the kids are aware that when they're screaming their heads off, they're actually affecting the people that live around us. You know,
I tell Rosie that. I tell her, like, if you keep screaming like that, they're going to call the police on me.
I said that before too, but now we live rurally. I'm like, I don't have that.
I have to live that way because we're 5 children and we're surrounded by neighbors, and they're really loud, they're really little, and they just make a lot of noise.
No, I mean, I think it's
so interesting though, all of this. And I think it's fascinating too, like even your generation, like obviously there's like the good girl people pleaser generation, and like it never ends. And that, I think the whole good girl, good boy people pleaser generations as well, and that innate type of way of being was also like a severe disconnect. It's like, go over there and be a good girl. Like you're a good girl if you don't, you just go over there and leave me alone. And and it's like now we're, you know, like trying to figure out like not to do that, and just but without being self-centered, because the opposite
but it's
of that
the same
sometimes
problem,
feels like
right? It's the same problem of like, go over there. Right. I mean, this disconnect from like children helping, again, it's about 150 years old. Right. And it again, like if it will really improve. I get emails every day that's like, the first part of your book like transformed my life. Like it will really improve people's lives if they start integrating their children a little tiny bit in their lives, their adult life. And like,
can you give us a little hope story? Maybe if you've got emails coming in every day, I'm sure you'll have one. But like our kids are 9 nearly, 9 and almost 9.
Yeah.
And a lot of people listening to this podcast maybe even have like teens. And I know I've got some friends who have teens, and they probably feel like their child is ruined, or that they ruined their child. And I know with Rosie, you started at like 2, 3. So that's kind of like, you know, I'd say that's like
we've missed the boat for a couple
have
of
we missed the boat?
No,
like,
there's no
how
boat
do we
missing.
go from how do
that's
we go
also
from, like,
weird.
If you don't clean up this bloody table, or like, you know, like how do we transform today? I don't know, we're gonna go read the book and everyone's gonna read the book, but like have we ruined our kids at the age of 9?
No. I mean, like I was like a horrible, selfish person until I was like 40.
Okay.
So like you have not ruined your kids. If I can change, like no,
It's
not
great.
at all.
We're
Like
still in
I said,
our 30s. I think we're good.
Good luck trying to be a horrible, selfish person when you've got 5 kids.
No, you cannot be a horrible, selfish person with 5 kids. I agree with that.
It doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I think the thing to do, okay, let's say you have kids that are older, and like people ask me this a lot, like, what do you do? Well, first of all, I say we all have in ourselves, and this comes from a woman in the Arctic, because we didn't even talk about the Inuit, but a big chunk of the book is this incredible culture in the Arctic called the Inuit, that are just this very Pacific, peaceful culture that really understands how to be calm and teach young children to be calm. But one of this women said to me, she's like, we all kind of have this flame in us, this like flame in our heart that like wants to help. And I really believe it. And I mean, it fits with the like evolutionary biology data. It fits with the primatology data. It's like, it fits with all this data we have on humans and how we evolved. We all have this kind of desire in us to help and help each other and help, like I say, the ones we love. And what we do as children grow up in our societies, we kind of, that flame goes down, right? Because of what we do, the flame gets smaller and smaller, but it is in everybody. It is lit and it's there. I promise you, it's there. And I think your job as a parent is to kind of slowly kind of fan it a little bit and bring it out and start to make it grow and let the child start to connect with it again. And so I think, and that's what I kind of did with my husband. so I think the key is like it is to kind of bring them on board a little bit. So it's like, either, like I said, like in the kitchen, like, hey, I'm cooking dinner tonight. I would love for you to just come and sit with me and like whatever they're excited about, figure out. Like sometimes with kids that are on screens, I'm like, what are you working on there? Like, tell me about what you're doing on the screen. Like, I don't know what it is, but just tell me. And like, get them talking, get them excited, get it to be with you and connect with you. And then keep asking them to do that each night while you're making dinner. And then like slowly, like they probably will want to do some help. Or you just have them grab that for me. Oh, you want to stir the pot? You want to like just slowly kind of bring them in. If you try to force it and you try to push it, they're just going to close back up. After dinner, you could try something like, you know what? I've got this new strategy. It's kind of crazy. But instead of us like arguing over who does the dinner, let's all just set a clock for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes. And we're going to all clean up together for 5 minutes. That's it. And then you're done. You can do whatever you want. But we're all going to do it, including the adults. And just try it. Just see it. Just say, we're going to just try it tonight. And just kind of get them like seeing that this is like a social teamwork thing and that this isn't like a punishment. Because the problem too with like the rewards is that then doing it without the reward feels a little bit like a punishment too, right? And it's like the last thing you want is like,
that's what my kids feel like.
Yeah,
everything's a punishment.
I feel like that.
Such a drag.
Because like, why would you do it without the money if you got the money, you know? So just try just little tiny things like that, or the grocery store is a good time to get kids to help because people love the grocery store. You know, like, hey, we're going to all get the groceries together today. Like, just try to do something as a group. We're all going to fold the laundry. Like, we had a really hard time getting the laundry done. And I finally was like, okay, we're setting a timer. We're going to get it done in 5 minutes. Like, fold the laundry, put it away. And it's like, and we turned it like into a game a little bit. You know, you gotta get the like dopamine flowing a little bit because it's really shut down. That's what the next book is about, dopamine.
I'm excited to. When will it be published?
Can you let us know?
I think it's either going to be the end of next fall 2025 or the beginning of 2026. But it's about like really what motivates children. You know, like how we can really motivate them without money and, you know, kind of how we get their juices flowing.
You're really honing in. I've made a mistake here.
Sorry.
I really fucked up.
No, you didn't.
I can't believe you would give them money. My whole book is going to be about not doing that.
It's not. It's actually about screens. It's about screens. It's
amazing.
Like what's happening in their brain and your brain when you're on the screen and when you're eating like ultra processed foods and then like how you can use that same brain circuitry to like get them to do whatever you want.
Love it. Michaeleen, really quickly before you go, because I know that you do speak about toys and play. Do you want to give us like a one-liner on how you feel about toys and what they do, I guess, or what you've seen
glad you wanted to get this little bit in because
just really quickly.
Well, I mean, no child needs a toy. No, you can just like get rid of them all. Like literally, like just get rid of them. You do not need them. And I will tell you, if you get rid of them, they will come back. So people are always like, does Rosie have no toys? And I'm like, no, because they return. Oh, they return into your life at every moment. They come back. And so it's a constant. To me, they're just a nuisance. They clutter.
Yeah.
You clean them up. If I have to clean up a toy once or twice, boom, gone. Just throw it away.
I love this because like
that.
I've always been like, oh, I think I'm just a really minimal person. Like, why does it trigger me so much? Like, why do the toys trigger me so much? It makes no sense to cut up wooden fruit with little Velcro in the middle with a fake knife.
God, no.
Like, why not just cut a fucking carrot? Anyway.
Yeah. Like, seriously. Or a banana
like,
if you're afraid of that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But then there's like all of the like science or studies or like whatever they say that's like this is essential for a child's development.
Even Steiner is really big on like play and learning through play. So
I mean, I'm not
like,
saying that play is not bad. Like
toys.
All children play is basically, so one of the psychologists, so no, I'm pro play. Play for children is the way they learn, right? I mean, that's how we learn too. We just don't call it play. We call it like trying. But like the difference is playing with like gadgets that have been made by a corporation and you know, that clutter your home, and playing like with stuff outside, or with in most cultures, kids use kind of old versions of the real tools, right? Or things that they've made to look like the real tools, or the family will make something that's kind of a small version of the real tool, right? The play is the way the child learns adult skills, right? And so like one of the psychologists said, like, children turn to play when they don't have access to the real thing. So they have access to the real task, they will try the real task. They don't have access to the real task, they will make up an imaginary version of it and try it out, right? And so play is like totally like essential, and children need it. It's just that they don't need like plastic things to do it. You know, you don't need to buy anything for them to play at all. I mean, I've been to many cultures where children have no tools, no toys whatsoever, and they play all the time, and they're incredibly happy. And the parent doesn't have to clean up one Lego.
Or step on one Lego.
Or step on one Lego. Like, or kick something across the room at 2 a.m. and like hurt your toe.
This is music to my ears. It's music to my ears because like I've always refused to have a playroom. And the times that I've been like, you know, like homeschooling or something, and I'm like, okay, let's set up a whole space. Like transforming an entire space in my house dedicated to this is a form of torture for me. And now we have this space above, like it's like a mezzanine kind of area, and it's kind of like, it's essentially like if we want to go watch a movie or something, that's where they go. But there's also like a lot of shit. Mostly it's craft, to be completely honest with you. But like it triggers me to think about having like a toy setup room where they go and I have to clean it up every day. Like that is, and I've always thought that I was just a shit mum for that. Like, I just don't, it's just like.
Always question that thought.
It's a lazy mum thing. But really, like we've lived, like now that we live on a farm, and I grew up on a farm, so I know what it's like to go out and make a toy from a stick and a leaf and a piece of like old thing that my pop might have had in the shed or something, or just make a game up or play with an animal, or like literally anything. Or I was always helping cooking, or like all the things. So now I'm like, I just felt like, oh, maybe it's a lazy parenting thing, but you have seriously affirmed my.
No, you're right. You're right. It's better.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Never think you're a shit mom. Always question that.
Good.
Always question that.
Good.
Oh no, thank you
Even the
so
money.
much.
Totally teasing.
And on that note, Michaeleen, if people want to find you, where can they find more of you and learn from you?
They have to email me because I'm like completely off social media. I'm sorry, but I'm writing a book about how bad social media is, and it's very hard for me to
you have your website and your book, so we can just link that, and everyone should.
And we're going to have a new website. New website's coming. Great. Where it will be like more stuff, but you can totally email me. I try to respond. Sometimes it takes a while, but so.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today, Michaeleen. It's been a joy.
Having me. Thank you.
I feel like this has been a little oxytocin hit for me.
Honestly, it has. And I just feel like I'm going to go home and be a really good mom. Like I'm going to do some good parenting this afternoon.
Do you know what?
And
I think you are a really good mom.
I know I am, but I'm going to do some experimenting. I'm going to like say to Brenton, I'm going to be like, okay, listen up, like watch and learn. And like, I'm going to have the kids clean the table. Like it's going to be great. And I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, let me know.
Oh, I will. I'll email you.
All right.
Thanks again.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful Tuesday.
Oh, yes. It's Tuesday here. That's right.
Yes. All right.
Oh, gosh.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.